I'm Joey Barrington, and joining me today in the fantastic gym we have the legend of squash, Jonah Barrington. It's been fireworks on the PSA World Tour, starting with the Tournament of Champions, Jonah, just last month, and I mean there was plenty of surprises there, but I know you were taken by the quality of the event and of course the drama.
Well, it was a spectacular event, Joey, to kick off the year. Amazing, great venue. As always, and I thought the gender parity factor, which was borne out in multiples by the quality of the girls, because they came to the party and they lifted the whole scene, and I thought it was fantastic what they did.
Well, just going on to the men's firstly, Kareem Abdul-Gawad, his second World Series event, winning that, and I mean, he was the usual pattern of some five-set thrillers going through, but it always looks with him like it was never really in doubt. He was always had a little bit extra just to get through, whether it was against Cameron Pilley or whether it was in the final.
Well, we know he has this strange habit of kicking off a match pretty slowly and looking for him amazingly sort of sluggish. But that merely precedes what then takes place afterwards, because when he goes down, the level of his play is raised astonishingly, and then of course the maintenance of what he does. So, you know, this is a really world-class performer. We've seen him in a World Open. We've now seen him backing it up on 2 occasions, and it's and he's obviously there to stay.
World Championship, yeah, that World Championship. Yeah, I mean that's what I was going to ask you. He's there to stay. He's proven that he can back up on these majors and win them, and it's no easy feat to win back-to-back World Series events. Just looking at some of the other players, I mean, the big talking point, I think we should start really with the Gregory Gaultier Mohamed El Shorbagy semi-final, which, I mean, the drama that was involved there and the entertainment factor. You've got pluses and minuses from all the squash fans. I mean, the quality of the squash at times was out of this world. But you know, your thoughts on kind of how that panned out, and also your thoughts on Gregory Gaultier really, and also Mohamed in that.
Prime performance from Greg in that first period. In fact, virtually through the first 3 games. The quality of what he was doing was as good as it gets, and Hamid was really hanging in there and playing very, very well. But so the crowd was seeing something very, very special. What happened after that? Depending on who you were supporting, Joey, and I was obviously in Mohamed's corner.
Sure.
Desperately trying to get in touch with his mother, whose phone was turned off sadly.
Amazing. Okay.
And remind Mohamed of what happens under those circumstances, or can happen, from my own experience and so on. I think John McEnroe said that there are a lot of shunts. He calls them shunts.
Yeah.
Because they happen in tennis. And now whether this was a proper shunt or not, obviously the opinion is divided. You did actually give Greg a further nickname, Long John Silver. He will never ever be a Shakespearean actor, I'll tell you that.
No.
I mean, he must stick to squash for many years. Seriously, I've always looked at double bounces as cheating. The worst form of cheating, double bounces, when people know that they've taken a ball and the double bounce. That is cheating as far as I'm concerned. This might be more appropriately called gamesmanship. This is a form of psychology. It's part of sport, many sports, and this kind of sport where there's so much drama. This is the sort of thing that's going to happen. It shouldn't take away from the overall quality of what Greg was producing on that court in New York. It shouldn't take away from the fight back by Mohamed Shorbagy. What should be taken away, Joey, is the quite dreadful comments that have gone down the line towards the French general by people who obviously remain anonymous and would never ever say something like that to his face, and that is unacceptable. Greg Gaultier is one of the really truly great squash players in the history of the game. His record is unmatched in terms of how long a player has been in that top four for the years that he has. Even Jahangir Khan wasn't spanning to that length. And this is an amazing player, and what we should be talking about, and we are now, is that long may he live, long may he play the game at this level.
Absolutely. I mean, you know, he is the French general with 34 years of age, and he deserves every victory he gets, particularly at this stage of his career with all the work that he's put in. Just looking at another bit of drama that happened in the Tournament Champions, the English rivalry between the marksman James Willstrop and the Wolf Nick Matthew. Always a talking point for us since we've been having our reviews, but finally Mr. Willstrop got, on the 20th occasion, managed to get the Wolf, which was hit the headlines as you'd expect, but all credit to James. I mean, what was different here though, he got him early on. They actually withdrew earlier on. It was a second round encounter rather than a semi or a final, so James was actually a lot fresher when he got to Nick Matthew. Yeah,
and also the rallies weren't that concentrated. Nick wasn't able to force the issue in that regard early in the match, and to make it as hard a physical match as he would have liked. I think he probably feels that he was below par physically on that occasion, although it would have been marginal. And we talked about it before, it only needs to be marginal for a world-class player like James to take an advantage, and James played a fine match.
He did, yeah.
And again, when it came to the point where he was very close to victory, he also didn't break up psychologically. It wasn't like he was thinking there's 19 matches or whatever it is that he'd lost on the trot. He just got on and he completed the job. So the end game factor was very well done.
And I mean, from a squash point of view, for to see somebody of James Willstrop's quality finally doing that, I mean, you must have been, as a neutral between the two, you must have been pretty happy to have seen that. He deserves to get a victory. Of
course. I mean, he's an object of considerable admiration, and he's another one who needs to play on for a long time. The Wolf will be festering.
He'll come back strong.
And he has an opportunity in the national championship.
He has, yeah. He's going for his record in the national championships.
So he will come out of his lair in Sheffield, and he will be really primed again.
Yeah, well, that will be a potentially fantastic final. But I mean, really, the quality of the squash throughout the Tournament of Champions was superb. And then moving on to the women, as you said in the opener, I mean, the quality through the rounds, which has been something that the difference between the men and the women, particularly the earlier rounds, the earlier women's matches seem to go through a lot quicker. But I mean, Sarah Jane Perry's hit the mark, hasn't she? She came through those rounds and she took down El Walili and then local favourite Amanda Sobey, and she's now struck inside the top 10.
She's gone into the contending factor, and when I say contending, she is now contending with the big ones. She's in that main group now, and everybody is obviously that much more aware of what she can do. Impressively, the backing up.
That's what,
to do that, because we've always talked about getting one win, but then having to actually manage the next phase of the career to develop the ability to back up, and she backed up. She's shown that again, and so she's got immense promise. She's obviously a very hard worker. She's hugely dangerous with her ability with a racket, and her mobility factor is improving all the time. So that was a great tournament for her, and well deserved.
Yeah.
she had shown signs of this before.
Sure. So a good start for Sarah Jane Perry, hitting inside top 10 in the world for the first time, and then Camille Serme. I mean, she won the last World Series event before this one in the US Open. Coming back, I mean, she took down the two younger Egyptians, Gohar and Shabini, and then Laura Mazzaro in the final. I mean, she is a big time player. Do you think that she has got the consistency to really mount a challenge to the younger Egyptian ladies that are firing through?
I think she's just going to progress, Joey, because the confidence that she must have now from what she has done so recently is going to be massive. She also knows that there are areas of her game that need to be worked on. She's already shown in this last phase, and we mentioned it before, a greater ability on a short game, but that has to be further developed. And also the ability to defend against the attack that will inevitably come from these young Egyptians. But she like Laura Mazzaro before, will develop and go on developing. I mean, it's been not a hugely long road, but it has been quite a distance already that she's come. And she's now got the experience and maturity to realise what she needs to do, and also to understand that the challenge will be mounted, because the bar's going to be raised again.
Yeah.
You know, the ladies are raising the bar all the time, which just makes me mention Nicole David, because she was right there.
Very close.
Was right there, very close again, showing all that prodigious athleticism that she has, but also a great determination to stay with the field.
Yeah.
So she's in the mix as well.
Well, she only just lost out
right.
in 5 to Shabini. So I mean, that's how far off she is.
You know, and Shabini, who has obviously been a very dominant force in the period before, coming out from the juniors and then into the seniors, and very precocious. And then you've got Nouran appearing too,
Yeah.
younger, so that challenge has come. And then of course you've got younger Egyptians again. You've got the 16-year-old who won the British Junior Open, Hamani, who where's she going to go? If her development continues in the way that it has, if she remains free of injury, you say this with all these guys, you know, they remaining free of injury, then she's obviously going to push into that kind of calibre over the next 2 to 3 years.
Yeah, I mean, looking at it, there's going to be a good
others,
few. That's what I mean. There's going to be a good few younger Egyptian ladies, but they are raising the bar for squash on the PSA World Tour, which is fantastic.
And Salma Ibrahim, who had a terrific match in TOC with Shabini.
Yeah.
She, I would imagine, has had some injury problems, because she did show up very well, very favourably at a younger age, and she showed that she has immense quality as well. But you could actually talk about 6, 8, 10 of them.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah, there's plenty coming out of Egypt, men and women, but particularly the women actually.
Well,
now.
not forgetting the diver who's based in the States, Kanzi
El Dafawi.
Yes, she has won 5 PSA tournaments at a lower level.
She's won the last 2.
And won the last 2, that's right, in Cincinnati and Delaware.
Yeah.
And
the diver.
yeah, she's a better diver than any of the men. You know, I mean, she puts Paul Cole to shame, to be quite honest. And so there you go. It's very clear that there's a small army of young players coming out of Egypt. That makes it so important that there is a balance, and so we can sort of pinpoint Camille Serme, who has brought herself through to this fantastic level, further development, pinpoint Laura Mazzaro, who goes on and on like Nick Matthew, keeping herself in terrific shape, hopefully staying free of injuries, and others who are now pushing up to contend, of course, Sarah Jane Perry, as we mentioned.
Sure.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, just a brief one on Paul Cole, because, you know, all the attention from the back end of 2016, and he backed up very well, didn't he? I mean, he had an unbelievable couple of scalps again, but also a battle with Willstrop, which went over close to 90 minutes, which was pretty tight. But he managed to take down Ali Farag and Chris Simpson, so he backed up very well in terms of the pressure on him.
He did, and it's difficult to know what kind of psychology he has coming into those, whether he feels under more pressure now, which would not be surprising, but in those two matches against Chris and then against Ali Farag, he was obviously playing at a very, very high level, and that was impressive again after his performances at the end of last year. And against James Willstrop, as we probably thought, he had a bit of a lesson. James really gave him a clear view of the way squash can be played.
Sure.
And would have made him feel very inexperienced in that way. But he still worked and worked and worked, and it was patently obvious that James was pretty relieved to get off court without having a further half an hour with Paul Cole, because it was a very demanding match.
It was.
James's focus had to be absolutely spot on to get rid of Paul.
Yeah, yeah. Well, the TOC, that's we've nicely gone through the TOC. Elsewhere on the PSA World Tour, we had even more news. Just starting with the Motor City Open, which was not played on all glass court, but it had an amazing field. I think most of them trying to go after that prestigious Rolex watch that there's on offer for the prize there. But Mohamed El Shorbagy, he got his comeuppance a little bit in the first round, because old Cesar Salazar of Mexico, who PJ will say it to this day, beat him in the US Open, but Mike Riley didn't go through with it, and the let ball was given, and PJ has that mantra before he even goes to bed. I mean, it's amazing. It's a tick that he just suddenly comes out with, PJ, but Cesar Salazar went for him again and he got him.
Yes, he seems to enjoy playing Hamid, and in the back end of that match, everything that he played basically came off. So he must have been pretty relaxed and very hyped up, and rightly so, because on the previous occasion he must have come away feeling that essentially he'd been robbed. But that was a terrific performance by him, and you would like to think that he will draw confidence from it and will make progress again.
Yeah, I mean, he's inside the top 30 in the world, and he's got a lot of attributes, Salazar, so hopefully another one that will be making a move on the World Tour. And then the bottom half of the draw, El Shorbagy Jr., Marwan El Shorbagy, lost out to the younger Diego Elias, who's always starting to prove now on the PSA World Tour that he can get these wins, but I'm still kind of watching to see if there's the backing up, as we say. He seems to get a big win and not quite make it to the next stage in the bigger tournaments, but certainly very dangerous.
Well, he's obviously still at a very young stage in his career. I know that he's been around, and he had a very fine junior career, but he has to settle down amongst the senior ranks, and there's always going to be the possibility that it might not work out in a particular match, in a particular event, but I would imagine that all the pros know that he is essentially very dangerous. There was a good basic game there when he was a junior that was too much for juniors who played junior squash, and he wasn't playing junior squash, so I would see him getting it together increasingly over the next 2 to 3 years, and that's obviously going to be great for the sport. Yeah,
I mean, he's the greatest player ever from Peru, and following the footsteps of the Colombian cannonball Rodriguez from Colombia. Absolutely. But the ending of that event, Ryan Caskelly, who's made great strides over the last period of time. He works avidly with Rod Martin up in New York State. He came through, got into that final opportunity, and he took it against Farag. A very, very good win for him against Farag, which places him at number 15 in the February ranking. So Koskelly's had a good surge again.
Absolutely, he's had a good surge. He's very difficult to get rid of. He's progressing his general abilities all the time. Again, this business of day after day after day of consistent work, working all those different elements, and then under the guidance of a very great player who understands everything about the way squash is played at the highest level. And he's got very good material to work with there, because Ryan's win was well deserved, and I would imagine that he's going to have quite a lot of success this season.
Yeah, well, I hope so. I mean, he'll be in the race for Dubai as well, Koskelly. And then going further afield, smaller event, but it's good to see that there are some events starting to emerge in Pakistan, where the President's Cup in Islamabad. It was Farhan Mahboob, who's been around a long period of time.
You had a battle or two with
I did.
him,
I had a battle or two with him.
So he's got to be about 50.
Well, yeah. We won't go into his age, but I'm sure he's older than his 20s. Goodness me. But yeah, I mean, he went through the field there though as well. I mean, it would be nice, wouldn't it, to see Pakistan back on the map again on the PSA World Tour.
It's been sad that Pakistan has been outside the mainstream for such a long time. We know that there are the reasons why, and you know, one likes to be optimistic in this regard, because that is a sign that there's a need there to put on these events, to try to get players coming in. I mean, essentially the opposition was coming from Hong Kong and from Egypt, but I look forward to the time when players from all over the world will be able to go there. I'm not holding my breath just yet, but it's, to my mind, very important to see a revival of Pakistan squash, and I would imagine that JK would be pretty involved in that if it happens.
You played him, didn't you? You played him. Did you play him in the Irish Open?
JK, I played him twice and beat him twice. He was 9. But had a moustache. All I can say is JK Mark 1 and JK Mark 2 would have been as good in this day as they were then.
Sure.
Fantastic, and one would like to see that level materializing again, not instantly, but see players coming out of Pakistan who are showing the similar qualities to those guys and then the boys before them.
Yeah, well, the history, as you say, the history is so rich in Pakistan with squash. And the Swedish Open just finished at the beginning of February, and the general managed to get his revenge. I mean, he broke the 19-match winning streak of Kareem Abdul-Gawad, and you watched that final. I commentated on the final, and Gregory Gaultier was absolutely brilliant, wasn't he? I mean, he 11-loved Abdul-Gawad. I mean, what's your opinion on bageling or donutting a fellow professional in that way, particularly a world champion?
Well, if I was being 10-love against Gawad, I would have been only too aware that a point given away could then end in a run from a player like that.
Yeah.
And I might well find myself in a tie break in about 4.5 minutes.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, you would not give a point to Rami Ashour if you were 10-love up on him.
No.
You wouldn't feel sorry for Remy Shaw at that stage.
No.
You'd be thinking, I must get this next point.
Yeah.
There's one famous tale from 150 years ago with the great Heather Mackay, who was 9-0, 9-0, 9-0 in the final of the British Open Women's against an English, well, she was 9-9-8 with this English girl. And in a moment, an unlikely moment of weakness, she gave the English girl a point. And about 5 minutes later, the girl was game ball against her. And,
Wow.
and Heather pulled it back and won it. And she said to me, never, ever again would you do that. I mean, I did actually give my brother, my dear brother, a point when I played him in a
Well, you'd like to think you might do that,
because my
Jonah.
coach, Nasrullah, insisted, but I was...
But that was because your coach insisted, not
Yes.
because your
No,
primitive
no,
instinct,
no,
otherwise
because
you'd...
I was rather frustrated about it. Yes, yeah.
But, I mean, that's...
No, you do it. That Gaultier performance was even better than what had taken place in the TOC, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Because Gawad is, it's his prime time at this stage, and he could not have been more confident of what he was capable of doing. And Gaultier retained the quality of performance. After the middle of the first game, Joey, where the intensity was exceptional, then it slid away and Gawad got home pretty quickly. And I thought at a distance that that could be that. And what happened afterwards was absolutely amazing, because Long John Silver,
AKA Gregory Gaultier, the general.
the general, not only moved extraordinarily well, with all the athleticism that he's had all through his career, all there, but again the tightness of his work and the overall quality of his game was such that Gawad had nowhere to go.
No.
And he didn't really know what to do in the end.
No, he didn't.
And there was no faltering.
Yeah, I mean, it was Gaultier's, I think, 35th PSA World Tour title. Obviously not a World Series, but a big enough event to give him a huge confidence boost moving into the next phase of the February calendar, and then March, which obviously gets very busy.
Fantastic player.
But I think it was nice to see the rapport afterwards with those two as well, because it would be very tough for somebody to have such a fantastic winning streak in this modern day squash at the moment as Gawad, but he couldn't have been more classy and more the way he spoke about Gaultier, and there was an embrace there, and that's good to see as well, isn't it? I mean, you saw it with...
It's a great advert for our sport. We have one of the most marvellous sports. We know that. We're obviously very subjective about it, but when you get that kind of scenario, and it's the best possible scenario, because obviously there's no quarter given on the court. Hard but fair, ideally, no quarter given, and then afterwards showing that kind of respect. Well,
always wonderful to hear your thoughts, Jonah, on all the squash that's happening, and there's so much to talk about, and we both love talking together. It's the only time we don't really argue. Well, we probably do actually, but no, it's been a fantastic start to the year. You're going to continue watching, just like all the viewers on PSA Squash TV. So much more squash to come, and we'll be back for certainly more reviews for February, March, and through to the end of the season. Join us again.